friend, I'm Deborah Larson.
And I'm Katie Shive.
And you're listening to the Redeeming Her podcast, where we aim to create a safe place for honest conversations that will inspire you to discover God's love through your pain. Our goal is to help you reframe your story and find freedom for the future.
So grab a latte and maybe some Kleenex, and let's dive into this week's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Redeeming Her podcast. I'm your host, Deborah Larson. And for those of you who will be wondering, Katie, my co-host, just had other commitments, but she'll be back again on the next broadcast. So for context, the date for today is October the 10th, and I want to thank you for joining us. So whether you are in the car listening on Spotify or watching our channel on YouTube, make sure you save this episode because you're going to want to go back and write down your key thoughts, the things that God will speak to you or that you need to remember or you just want to unpack. So last week, I addressed a pretty deep topic about the purity of truth and learning to discern it. It was fresh off the press from the Holy Spirit that morning. So if you haven't listened to it, I want to encourage you to go back and take a moment and you'll enjoy it. And this episode is on the back of that episode. So we're going to be continuing that same theme. So sometimes we can get caught in a web of overwhelm. We're forced to face circumstances and decisions that exceed our current capacity. Anybody relate to that? If you layer the weight of loss or shame and feelings of isolation or loneliness, it can even paralyze a strong, capable person, which we all feel we are. So if you have felt like every turn has been a wrong one, well, this episode is for you. So take a breath, open your heart, because I want to say you don't have to do this alone. Ever. Now for the exciting piece. I am so honored to introduce my guest. You know, she's been a friend for about 5 years. Her name is Marielle, and she's joining us from Washington State. Marielle, welcome to this episode. And dang, I'm so glad I met you 5 years ago.
Same here.
So you were a catalyst for last week's episode, and your breakthrough brought victory for me. And I expect that all of our listeners are going to find one edge or another that God is going to bring breakthrough for them as well. So do me a favor and give us a high-level introduction. And I held back on purpose because I want it to be your words. So how did we meet? How did that impact you? And who is Marielle?
Okay, I'll start with who is Marielle in a nutshell. Marielle is from the Netherlands. And I came here in 93 as an au pair, which is a nanny. And loved it so much that I only went back for a few months and then decided to move here. I am a cosmetologist in Washington State. I have some other little side gigs going on. I'm total entrepreneurial. I love being around people, and I don't like the restrictions jobs put on you when you want to talk about the Lord to people or pray for people. So that's a little bit of Marielle in a nutshell.
So Marielle, you have been in the States for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
What,
yes.
20 something years?
33.
33. See how much
33.
I know.
Yes.
I know that before we transitioned from Nevada to coming back to Texas, I think it was 2000, was it 17, 15 or 17, something like that we had a speaking arrangement up at the church you attended up in Washington.
Yes.
And here's what I thought was interesting. I had to speak first in the morning on Saturday morning. It was just a chaotic thing. And I'm like, okay, God, I know you brought us here, so it has to be your words. I'm never going to remember everything. He had me up at 3:30 in the morning, sketching with the light of my clock what he wanted me to say. I'm like, that's great notes, great preparation. But when you're used to filtering and speaking and connecting with the Spirit, sometimes it's unnerving and sometimes it's so refreshing. That day, I was so tired. And when we got there, we finished the job. There was a break for lunch, if I remember correctly.
Yes. What really impressed me, normally in churches, the ministers go out to lunch with the ministers. And what really impressed me is that you and your husband wanted to sit amongst the people.
Yeah.
And so you asked, where can we go to lunch? And that's kind of how it went. Oh, there's a place here, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I do. I remember my
That's how we
husband
met.
going, yeah, do you want to go? And I'm like, no, I don't want to go with you. I love people. And I'm so glad that I did that because I got to meet some of the most wonderful people, you and Brenda and some other people. But we really connected, you and Brenda and I, and we stayed friends for a long time, like even after the move. And it was just so refreshing because I think we're all equal. I think that that's how God sees us. We're all equal. So even like with our listeners, there's no hierarchy here. This is all about what he has for us, what we can deliver to you and how we can grow together, as individuals and in community. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit today. When we talked, let's see, why don't you give me how do I phrase this for you? So you and Brenda were best friends for many years and you had a great working relationship and friendship, totally heterosexual, but living together for how many years, And it's interesting because that could really pose people's minds that wander and think about all these silly things. But I remember that you both had different, very strong personalities, and how you learned to collaborate reminded me of the strength of my husband and I. The same type of things, yet honoring each other was just absolutely beautiful. And you had lots of things. I watched you walk in strength and in faith, and I've watched you take leaps of faith out of nowhere. I'm like, well, okay, don't worry. God always does it that way. So it was neat to exchange how we both walked in things of the Spirit and how God spoke to you, how you heard him, which is so different than everyone else because that's how it should be. It's specific to that relationship. Can you share a little bit about the close of that relationship and how we started really working together in relationship to grief and to transitioning and things of that nature?
So Brenda, yes, she was more a sister than a best friend. And yes, we walked through a lot of warfare of being accused, of being on the other team, so to speak. And so we started to call each other sister in public. And actually the Lord rebuked me. And he says, it was me who sent them out 2 by 2. Stand in that, which was so powerful. So Brenda and I, we lived together and we're very, very close friends for 20 years. Been through ups and downs. It was absolutely powerful. We were in ministry together. She was an absolute powerful worship leader, revivalist. And we had just been commissioned to start our own prophetic worship center and school to raise up minstrels and psalmists. And in that time frame, it was a 3-month time frame. We were commissioned in December. She was making the plans to start to bring unity in our city between the churches. And so I had to go to Holland because my dad was dying. And while I was there, all of a sudden, over here, Brenda suddenly died. And I couldn't get back fast enough. The airline wouldn't change my ticket for me. So when that was, I cannot even describe the hit that was, what kind of hit that was. And it sent me into a tailspin because at first I lost my cats. Then I lost Brenda. 2 weeks later, I lost a very close friend. 2 weeks after that, I lost my dad.
Holy cow.
4 or 5 months later, my brother-in-law died. A month after that, my aunt died, who was like a mom to all of us. And then 3 months after that, another best friend died. So I just went into the deepest abyss. I was so suicidal. I didn't want to live anymore. Of course, I had all of hell backing me up on that one. And it was the hardest. I don't ever want to go through that again because in a way, my brain piled all these deaths up to one. And my brain tried to process it. And people would go, you just have to push yourself. I would just touch something that was hers and I would lose it for days. And I didn't understand. And so finally I was walking through my house and I said, God, what is wrong with me? People lose people. Even my sister, she had just lost her husband and she did well. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I heard him say, look up cumulative grief. And I went to my iPad and I looked it up. And that is when you lose a lot of people at once, your brain cannot process that as one. You have to literally go through each one and process them separately. And I should have gone through a grief group, but I was so tired of crying all the time, and I didn't want, for some reason, there was shame in it. I don't know why that was. Probably because of the external influences telling me how I should do things. So I just kind of went off the deep end for a good close to 2 years. And finally, and that was actually only a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, I can't do this anymore, Lord. I need counseling. And you came to mind. It's like we talk a lot, and still it didn't connect. I'm like, I'm just going to ask her for counseling. And so I did. And you were just talking, and I cannot even quite remember every little thing we talked about, but your spirit hears it.
It does.
And from the next morning, all of a sudden, because my cry to God was, if you want me here on this earth, then I need joy. I need to have joy. And since the next morning, I've had his joy. So what was said and spoken, the change just fell off and the demons ran pretty much.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Amazing. Yeah.
So you just unloaded a lot.
Oh, sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. I am thinking, wow, I forgot how rapid the loss was and how fast it came. And I appreciate, not only do I need to applaud you, but I want you to just pause for a moment, and I want you to feel how strong you are in even just this delivery. Because in the last 4 years, you've not been this composed and this free to say that in that fashion. And I'm listening to you, like, I'm not laughing, people. I was just like, I'm overwhelmed, not only at the message, because we tend to forget the intensity. When something comes like a rapid fire, and that's how it feels when you can't even get through the first layer of realization that something as painful and as impacting as losing your best friend, losing a spouse, losing a parent, losing a sister, just the compacted, the accumulation, as you said, but the compacted assault and how your body responds to that I'm surprised you didn't actually take some prescriptions to try to help you get through a few things. And that just says to me how I knew that you had deep within you this grounded relationship with the spirit of truth you have for all of your life. And it's not like we don't have, ebb and flow. Like many of our listeners, I'm sure they're like, holy cow, that was just a lot. I didn't even count it. Was it six losses in less than 12 months?
Yeah.
Okay, people, those little things when it talks about stress? If you've moved in a year, there'll be this many points of stress. If you've lost a loved one, if you've had a divorce, the type of change that we have to accommodate is greater than our physical bodies can even understand. Now you layer that, like I did in the intro, layer grief, layer the consequences of now you were two people on a budget and now you're one person on a budget. I'll never forget that day, Marielle. I'll never forget. I was on a business trip with my husband out of the country, and Brenda called me on a FaceTime, it was a FaceTime. And I'm like,
Marco Polo.
No, it was a FaceTime. We were actually, I think it was, wasn't it? I think it was.
I have one of you and her and Marco Polo. Also.
Maybe it was the video app. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was talking, and I was at breakfast waiting for them to finish. And I'm like, how fun is this? And we're having this conversation, and she's sitting there so calm. And we're just talking about deep things. I mean, she goes to the bottom of what the message of God is for her and then comes up for air. And the fun part is we can do that and discover a lot. So sometimes iron sharpens iron, and it is really a great relationship. And we sat there and talked, and it was just fabulous. I'm like, I can't wait to get back and get together with you and Marielle. And then the next thing I know, you call me to tell me that this has happened. And I'm just sitting there stunned. I just spoke to her. That's not even possible. And instead of diving into what that traumatic event was, it was just the effect of who we, as what some people would say, you're pretty strong, Deborah. You can handle this, you can handle that. I'm like, look, we all have a breaking point. We all have to recenter, we have to ground, we have to figure these things out. And sometimes you just want to hide. And I know that was an up and down thing for you. I obviously wasn't in the middle of your relationships. And so I knew you from whatever level of exposure and relationship that we unveiled, right? And Brenda really had just started to open up to me on some things. So it was just remarkable. But what I did recognize was the rapid fire hit and how it would take you up and then it would take you out, and then trying to work and then you couldn't work, and then making sure you were doing your part and all these dynamics. And then I think, didn't you had just moved into an apartment. I remember the Christmas before, the day before you were supposed to apply or get this thing, God sent a call to you and to I, and you're like, don't worry, he does it this way. I go, last minute every time. How many of you feel like God's late sometimes? Like I'm going, well, as long as you know that's how he works, because that would make me unnerved, And you had just moved into this apartment, counting both of your salaries, and the faith that you had to walk through and what God was doing for you was remarkable. And so when it was up and down, how many of our listeners, when you're just overwhelmed, you just want to isolate? Like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I mean, I'm just going to say I'm number one. And when Kate and I talk about it and we don't text back and forth, I'd be like, oh, she's having a day, she's having a week, we're not having a conversation, I'm just going to pray for her. And what is beautiful about that is the community, is the relationship that we know that we don't infringe on, we don't overpower, we're gracious, we respect each other. There were several times when you would bring some things up and I'd be like, Marielle, we know what to do here. We know what to do here. And you know it here, but you can't make yourself do it. And that is really the part of being blocked. When we're blocked and we're frozen and we're like, but I know to do it. And then mindsets don't shift that, because your body has it so recorded inside that you can't erase it, go back, rewind, and then erase it. We can't do that. That takes time. Mm-hmm. And when there's so much that hits at one time, it doesn't really matter. Like my last 4 or 5 months, I would sit there, I'd be like, okay, God, how do I need to help serve her? Because we do trust each other. We have had each other's back, and we don't agree on everything because it's her world, her faith walk. I remember a couple of things that you'd share. I'd be like, it's not my job to judge that. She walks a different path with God. I remember the night before you moved in and everything was provided for you. I'm like, she's a woman of great faith. It's not my place. And I think sometimes when we're talking about friendships and support and how do we do that, because people that are in this place often don't go, hey, I want to join a Facebook group. Hey, I want to be part of your community. Hey, I want to talk to you. Because we're like, trolling, listening, going, is that real? Is this really a people group that is a safe place? Like we say in our introductions, there's no judgment, there's no restriction, there's no religiosity. I don't care if somebody uses a religious term. The heart of the matter is we all get to walk it out the way God walks it out with us. And so this is the part I appreciate about it. And I do know that the last couple of several months, you were struggling with some choices that you had to make, and there wasn't a lot of support for you. And I was just listening to it thinking, because I literally, remember I shared this with you, Marielle, I had to sit before the Lord and go, I would lean on my talents and I would take charge and I would do it this way. And he's like, that's you. And I said, that's right. And I said, I know that she knows your voice. I know that if she is a woman of great faith and she's standing there, and he told you some pretty serious things. You were facing moving without consent. You want to give us a little highlight on that?
Yeah, the beautiful thing is God sets each of us apart. and he deals with us accordingly based on what you're called to do also. And with me, of course, you get from the outside, do this, go get a job, do this. I am not joking. I applied until my fingers couldn't move on the keyboard anymore, but the doors would not open.
Let me pause real quick here. Marielle,
Yes.
you are an established, beautiful cosmetologist. You do great
Yes.
things with people's hair. You have a beautiful
Yes.
head of hair, and you
Yeah.
help others. You've been in your own shop. You've done so many other jobs. And then I think you felt really impressed to start real estate. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And that's so. As I was applying for the jobs, God shuts the doors, right? And when we're talking grief, He knows what we need to walk through that grief. It's very easy to get super busy with things and not feel them. You end up in a nervous breakdown. And so then He led me to real estate. So I'm taking those classes. I will do them simultaneously with doing hair. And because for me, it's all about ministry.
Oh, compassion.
He's the provision side. And I had to learn that. I am the being his hands and feet and mouthpiece side. I didn't want to live anymore. And I kept, you can argue with God. Brenda loved to argue with God. She never won, but she loved, and he loved it too. They would banter back and forth. We don't know God like that, but she definitely did. And so in that time, I I was, you go through all those emotions when you lose somebody, and I was kind of like, I want to come home. I did everything that the Bible said. I submit my spirit, blah blah blah, and all of a sudden, the Father's presence came into my house, and it was the fear of the Lord, and I was so scared, spitless. I even questioned my salvation, and then because I wanted to I didn't want to live. He goes, you will go when I say you can go. So that led up to another encounter with the Lord Jesus. And he says, don't turn your back on me. I said, I'm not turning my back on you. I want to come to you. And he goes, if you do that, you will not see me. So I had to really battle through those aspects of like every part of my being did not want to be here anymore. But at the same time, I know I wasn't allowed to come home. I felt imprisoned, really. And so till I surrendered, and I said, but I need your help. I'm sitting in my chair, and all of a sudden I see the side part of a man walking, and he said, I am your kinsman redeemer. It was the most beautiful encounter.
Yeah.
And so
Beautiful.
he has been my husband in everything. He has provided things that are unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal. And there are too many to even mention.
You do have a beautiful testimony of your intimacy with him, and he is your provider. I've watched it happen time and again. And what I hear in your messaging is that when you're walking your days out with him, whether you're single, whether you're not, whether you're working, whether you're transitioning to a new vocation, whether you're an entrepreneur and you just have 1,500 ideas, and he's like, start here, that kind of thing, that when you're going that direction and you get stuck and it gets blocked, I hear that you wait on him and then he gives you direction. And yet, in the accumulation of everything that has led up to even just last week, I think it was just a week ago, where you were stuck and you were blocked in this direction, and you like one connection, like you reached out to me from nowhere. Are you available to counsel? And I'm thinking, sure, I can do that. No problem. I mean, it's not something I'm not offering my counseling services, but you're my friend. And we definitely can reason together and let revelation come. And that's really what happened. That one honest connection, literally the next day, I think you text me, and that it dismantled the walls. It reopened a pathway in a moment. And then you're saying, I have peace and hope and joy. And I'm like, there was no fixing. There was no method. There was no practicing all the good things that we do. Meditation, waiting on him, working through. A lot of us do somatic treatment or therapies. We memorize scripture. We do different processes that works for us individually. And when that happens, then we're like, okay, it's a better day. It's a better day. But yours was almost instantly. It literally took me by surprise. Just that one honest conversation took you out of isolation into safety. And yet you've been saying you've been struggling with even wanting to live for several years because of it.
Yeah.
And in that journey, you're contending, it's okay to go home. He's like, it's not time. And some of us are like, well, we want it to be our time. I'm weary, and yet as you contended and he led you up to this pinnacle event, tell us how that shifted for you.
Night. It's the moment where when you've been under this heavy cloud for like 2.5 years, and all of a sudden it was literally like I got joy. Where's that coming from? I'm serious.
I know, because it's a surprise, because you can't pull your emotions out. You can say,
really
okay, heart, you're going to be full of joy right now. You can't do that. Mind, you're going to be thinking. It doesn't work that way.
No, it was supernatural, absolutely supernatural. But I think it's all about surrender. It's when, see, a house divided can't stand. When we are divided in our hearts, God really can't answer our prayers because he doesn't even know what you want. He chooses. He knows from the beginning to the end, but he chooses to let you make the choices. And so when you're not totally there, to where you're not totally ready to surrender all, he can't really answer. He can only maybe give you a trickle here and there on things that align. But somehow, because I was finally at the end of myself, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I need help. And I'm thinking, man, I could have had this 2 years ago. But that's just how it goes. But it's, it was the most beautiful experience. And even when Brenda passed, he gave me scriptures. He will pull me out of the pit, pull me out of the grave. He will give me, restore my joy to where I will be singing again. And that's the first thing I wanted to do. I just started singing to him. And I'm like, oh my goodness. It was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I can't pinpoint. We went through some repentance, but a lot of it was understanding of the why. When we understand why something is taking place, like, for example, we step into a trial. God allows us to step into a trial. Because even with the finances, it was a trial. And I'm like, Lord, okay, what's happening? Because I always ask, okay, is it me? Is it the devil? Or is it you? And he led me to scriptures that I was in Job's second test. And I'm like, great, what was his first one? He lost everybody. Oh, okay. Understanding.
Don't you love it when someone says this is your Job story?
Yeah, but you know what? The end of that story is a double portion. So it's going to get better. So
yes,
that very thing helps you to stand in what you're going through. So just to walk through that and just to get the understanding of why things are blocked, because when things are blocked, it's like a tornado going on in your brain. You cannot land anything. And you do something for a couple minutes and you're absolutely zapped. It's like there is literally no energy. But once I had the revelation, once I had the understanding and kind of walked through, okay, maybe repentance and some forgiveness and looking at some things, I want to be at a point where if somebody accuses me of something, to stand in front of the mirror, Lord, what is there that there is truth? Because if we want to be reformed, if we want to have revival and reformation, it has to start with us. So I start asking him, look inside of me, create in me a clean heart. See if there's any wicked way in me, because those kinds of wicked ways, and that doesn't mean we're evil, that just means the enemy has a foothold somewhere, is where we can start to heal and we get aligned and we can become who we're supposed to become.
Yeah. I know when we chatted last night, we talked about a couple of things, and I remember you sharing the brain weight, the fog, the memory, what you couldn't retain. And even without these last few months of transition, literally, I know I shared this on the last podcast, and the reason why I was so excited to have you here today was because people need to know that your brain doesn't just come back that fast. It can, because God can do it. And that's when you said it's supernatural. It's not something you're naturally able to do. We can't control it. Systems and methods don't control it. Over time, it seems to work itself out. But what we talked about that day, which I said it was fresh off the press, because when you called me for answers, I didn't have them. I didn't have them. He'd already been speaking to me about some things in my own journey and what I've said and what I came into agreement with that I didn't even know. And that's what we talked about on the last podcast was we don't even know when we've been deceived and we've said something that really didn't sound like judgment. It sounded like justice. Like, well, that's not fair. You shouldn't be saying that. And some of the people that were around you couldn't understand your choosing. And they also said some things that were truth. It was absolutely true. You should be working. You should be doing those things. Shoulda, woulda often comes with shame. When you hear that, it's not so much that you're angry at that person, but you come into agreement. You're right. I should be, and I'm trying. So then we come into agreement with truth, but a thread of shame, because the fruit of the Spirit is not shame. If shame shows up in the messaging, no matter how well intended it was, no matter who's speaking it to you, it's not from the voice of the Spirit. And that was the whole thing about discernment. And I remember sharing that with you, that when that happens, because I am a responsible person, you are. You are diligent. You are doing everything that our culture tells us what to do. And then you have the Spirit saying, but I want you to turn left instead of right. And you're like, how is that going to help me plan? Okay. So the power of our agreements, whether they're intentional or not, literally do make a difference. And when he revealed that to me and I shared it with you, you were like, whoa, I didn't think about that. You know, when I was struggling after my son died, I was like, I'm tired. I don't want to keep doing this, Lord. I really could go home. And I said that in my head. And then I said that about 3 or 4 weeks in a row. And he said, be careful what you ask for. Ooh. Because sometimes when we say stuff, we're just venting. You know, last episode, he told me venting. He goes, that's just permission to complain. Or I'm a verbal processor. That's just permission to complain. And so it's not because he's judging our words, it's because the other side is. Yeah. And he's laying in wait so he can come into agreement. I can work with that. And then we open up this catastrophic opportunity to get pelted one after the other after the other. And when you were talking to me about that on the phone that day, he was just giving me this revelation right in the minute. And I'm like, Marielle, this is like fresh from the Spirit of truth. I don't know if you remember that. I'm like, this is what he has said. And then when I recognize what I did immediately, when we do something that opens a door for affliction to hit us, a spiritual thing, for darkness to bring an assault. When that happens, then we have to use our same words and authority to go, wow, I didn't mean that. That wasn't an intentional saying. So I'm going to redeem it by applying the blood of Jesus Christ, which is supposed to pay all debts, right? So when we make a mistake, there's just a do-over. But when we do the do-over, like, forgive me, Lord, I had no idea. I was changing covenants from your covenant of life to a place of death, because he said, be careful what you ask for. And we think we're just venting and we don't really recognize it. Now, I'm not saying you have to be careful of every little word that comes out of your mouth, but in this day and hour where our culture is shifting and things are super heavy weighted outside of our own personal business, we do need to be more intentional with what we're doing, connecting with the things of truth so that we don't get slided with a little bit of a lie or an untruth, which then can open up more struggles and challenges that we're praying for him to stop. You know, yes. God, can you please do this for me? He's like, I want to, but you kind of changed sides for a minute, and so you want free will and I give that to you, but you changed sides. And now you're asking me to use that same authority and to break it off for you, but you need to settle it first. Now we can step into agreement and work together again.
Yes. Before I go to bed, I cancel all idle words that I've spoken and I ask for forgiveness for them.
That's a good word, Marielle.
Because we
Idle.
get judged on we get words.
But we're not judged by God. We're judged by the enemy, the other
Right,
side.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure we are staying on track and not open those doors.
Because we don't recognize the validity of the first mistake or the intentional choice of Satan in the heavens. That's the first thing that happened there. It goes all the way back. Like everybody gets to choose. And we're living in this culture because we don't live in third world cultures. I love listening to people from Nigeria or from Venezuela or different countries because, especially like even in Mexico, because spirituality there is in your face. We don't cloak it. We don't cover it. We don't dress it in religion there. It is part of what you learn. Just like when you have a loved one that passes, it's a part of life. They know what that is. They learn how to mourn. They learn how to lament. They have processes and ceremonies, and then they learn to let it go. But in our Western culture, it's like, we're going to live forever. We have all the tools and the trades, and we're bigger than that. And then we bring God into it. And well, he's supposed to make sure all that not happen to us because, he's sovereign. And so we get this misperspective of what God really is and who he is to us. And then when you are trying to walk that walk with him or that relationship, then we're sitting there thinking, but why didn't God do that? And when we question it like that, it's because our heart is in a position of not recognize his character, not recognizing who he is. And then we come out of alignment with that, because when you ask that, that's really slander. When we go, well, why didn't God do this? How could he let this happen? And we think that's a truth. How could he let it happen? But if you knew him, he didn't let it happen. It's a consequence outside of his control, which usually comes from us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do believe that when we shared that on the phone, you were like, okay, Deborah, I should have recorded this. I'm like, I should have recorded it because I have to go back and go, all right, give it to me again in a language set that I can deliver it. And for those of you who are listening, maybe you don't have conversations with God like that. It's totally okay, because he is going to meet you where you are, where you're comfortable, where you want to expand some things in your life. And that's cool. Like, we absolutely love it, because I can tell you, not all my life did I walk this easy. And sometimes it's not even easier. The more you know, the more you grow. And then it's like, wow, I'm way responsible for all this. Like, I know I should change it this way. And then that's why it takes relationship and desire and an encounter, like you were talking about. When he shows up, you're like he lives inside of us every day, all day long. And we can just tap those resources. And when we learn to do that, it's a little bit easier to walk through that. But it's so wonderful when he gives you a confirmation from a friend, from a counselor, from a reading, from whatever it is. When you're tapping that source where your spirit's connecting to his spirit, then you're able to say, okay, I don't know what you said, but I say yes. And that's basically what you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just said, okay. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I remember saying, don't call me back until you have victory. I expect tomorrow I'm going to hear from you, and this is going to be the outcome, because that's what the spirit was telling me, right? And so why don't you finish that piece of it? The joy, the overwhelm. How did that come? Was it that night? Was it the next morning? How did it feel on your body? How did it feel in your soul?
So that afternoon, instantly I felt lighter.
And you prayed after we hung up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very shortly after, I felt lighter. And I'm like, oh, wow, I kind of feel good. So I got things done, But then the next morning is when I literally, who wakes up with, some people do. I don't. But I did. And so it's been really revolutionary, because when you have that joy, with that joy comes his peace.
Mm.
And now your mind gets clear. Now you can hear him better. Now you want to seek him, you want to worship, you want to do those things, and then you can sense the leading of the Holy Spirit, of him directing your steps. So for me, it has been an absolute turnaround to where I love life again. I never
Wow.
thought that I would say that again.
Say that
I
again.
want to live again. I love life again. I want to fulfill my calling because he is worth too much for me not to. He has given too much to me for me to say no. Years and years and years ago, I was a pretty brand new Christian. Brenda took me to one of the conferences at her church. We were in separate churches at that time. Bobby Connor was there. And Bobby Connor pulled me up front. And for 5 minutes long, he had me say, "Yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord." And all these years, I thought, okay, what the heck does that mean? Until this all happened. And it wasn't until a few months ago when I finally had the revelation. Jesus asked Peter, "Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me?" Because there was going to be 3 times where he was going to deny him. And he had me say, "Yes, Lord," for 5 minutes long, because it was going to counteract all the times that that I told him, "I don't want to do this anymore. I want to die. I don't want to go. I don't want to be here anymore." He was
Mhm.
counteracting those with those yeses that I spoke back then, because there's no time in God. And it's been, and having all that revelation just come over you, I'm like, oh my gosh, Lord, you are just too good to be true. You're just too kind. You're just too amazing. How he is so involved and wants to be involved and loves us so much and cares for us so deeply that he will allow us to beat him up with that, Not that we want to, but in our pain we do stupid stuff, right? So I've done plenty of stupid stuff. So, but yes, it's been life changing. I'm going through real estate classes. I'm expanding my hair business as a mobile business, which is so exciting. And I get to be around a lot of elderly people. And so I get to minister to them. Some of them lead them to the Lord. And it's been absolutely amazing. And like, I would have missed all that and whatever is to come. Life
You know,
changing.
it is life changing. And I was just writing down some things I'm hearing from you is experiences can be life changing. They can be step by step. And I'm sure he's going to unfold a tremendous amount, even more so before you. But what I didn't hear was shame. I
No,
didn't
what's
hear
wrong?
false responsibility. I didn't hear regret, and I didn't hear negative self-talk. So those of us who understand and we live with that, sometimes you get traffic jams in your head because, as we talked before, there's something true about it, but then there's something not true, but we really can't identify it because we don't have words and we don't know how to identify it. And so whether it's with me or with you or another person, I'm sure that when you call ministry is really listening to people, hearing their heart, bringing value to them and endorsing
Yes,
that, and then just speaking life over them, you know.
yes,
But this is what God really sees in you, because we need hope. And hope
yes.
is the first part before joy. So what he did was he lifted the weight off of you,
Yeah,
then all of a sudden you could get things done. Do you know how many times I've called you and you can't get out of your chair? You know,
yeah,
and you're getting up and you're doing things. And now, mind you, to bring us in context, Marielle had to move out of her previous apartment. God provided her a house. Somebody opened that door right before she was going to be living in her car and got her this beautiful house, fully furnished. On top of that, she's doing all of the training he's told her to do. He is your redeemer. He is your husband. As my married friend says, he's my first husband and he treats me the best. I'm like, I like that. But everything she needed, he did provide. He did let her walk through it because it's building her courage. It's building her confidence. It's building her voice. And then when he lifted all that weight, that's how fast it can happen. When you get a
yeah,
revelation and you hit agreement, she didn't have to repeat after me. She didn't have to listen to everything I said and exacting. She just knew that the Spirit said this. She knew that we were in agreement and it resonated. And we just said, how many times has he just said, just say yes? Start with yes, and then let me work with that, because that can be a domino effect for everything you're asking from me. And when we're struggling with grief and loss, and we're literally, I was up this morning, person that I just recently met in our buying and selling transactions of our house, her son died. And I was sitting there this morning thinking about, oh my God, how this hurts so bad, how it hurts so bad. It's not like we can't remember. It's not like we don't feel it. And I thought, just the presence of somebody alongside of you, just the presence of truth, no language, just being there for each other is agreement. And it's agreement and recognition. I see you. I understand you. I hear you. You don't need to become me. You don't need to change. You just need to say, yes, can we do this? And he's like, yeah, I can work with that and we can shift it all for you. And then you're saying clarity came. So we have brain fog that's not lifting. You can't remember. And then clarity came. And now you're studying again. Okay, that doesn't just happen overnight.
No.
Unless he intervenes.
Unless he does.
And that's the power of agreement when the Spirit of truth offers this to you and says, that's right, let's work from here. And then he does his job that we've been asking for. Now, physically, how are you feeling? Because I know that you struggle with some things. How is your body feeling today?
I'm doing good. Yes, because there's peace. There's peace. And when there's peace, all the tightness goes away. It just runs off of you.
And then you dance and then you sing, because singing is your favorite thing to do. And it's your on-ramp to connect with things that we can't articulate. Sometimes singing is just a great on-ramp to releasing stuff. And we don't have to all have the answers. And I want to give everybody permission who's listening. You don't have to know everything. You need to know who does. You just need to connect with the everything and understand, hey, there's a lot of moving parts here. This whole podcast was full of all kinds of diversity and messages. And it was fabulous because it showed all these different experiences with just two people, because the experience is the engagement of who he is to us and how he shows up for us. And it isn't about not questioning things. It's how we question God. Because when we use the plumb line of the fruits of the Spirit to know his nature and his character, then we know he didn't do anything to us. The sovereignty was to allow us opportunity to choose. The sovereignty was holding back when he wants to intervene, because he's given us the ability, like himself, to make those decisions. So when you said you surrendered, that's a big word. Surrender is the most powerful thing you can do. It will shift the dark attacks. It will shift grief. It will shift shame. It will shift everything when you just go, I'm going to go low and I'm going to lay this down because I don't know, but I know who does. And that agreement can happen just like that. And that is what I believe happened for you, Marielle.
Yeah.
I am overwhelmed with joy right now because I get to be a part of your journey. Your transformational moment was a victory for me because I didn't have all that ahead of time. And oftentimes he just tells us in the moment. That's when I call it fresh off the press, man. I didn't even write this down. So what would you say to somebody right now from this side of that threshold, over the threshold? What would you say to somebody if they're sitting there? And I want you to talk practical and like physically and otherwise. Tell me, what would you say to one of our listeners about if you're struggling with being blocked and you're stuck and you feel like every turn that you have is literally being blocked and you're wrong, you're always wrong? What would you say to them?
Press in, lean in. Nothing is wasted, because all these components you keep seeking, you keep saying yes and wanting to be free. Because sometimes we have to, like I said about the divided heart, we have to sometimes really make sure we're all in. So keep seeking the yes, keep seeking the healing, keep seeking the deliverance and the freedom. No time is wasted, because it all comes back around to where everything you've been through will become this oil that he will use in your calling. You will be like the oil poured out on his feet. You will be the hem of his garden because of what you went through. Somebody will come to you and you will recognize, in your freedom, you will recognize what somebody is going through. Ugh, feel the Holy Spirit. And you will become the hem of his garden, of his garment, when they come to you and ask for help or ask for prayer. And you have the answer, you have the authority, you have the ability. Because he says, lay hands on the sick and they will recover. So while you're blocked, worship, whether you feel it or not, because it's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about Deborah. Worship him. If you're not a Christian and you're listening to this podcast, I want to really challenge you. Ask him to make himself real to you because he's with you always. So, and if you don't feel like worshiping, we are worship. If you decide against everything you feel, but those dishes need to be done, that can become worship to him because you're doing it unto him. If you singing, if you can't hold a tune in a bucket, I don't know, play drums on your table. Do something that says worship, because in that is the breakthrough. Worship, the anointing comes, it breaks the yoke of your chains and the chains fall off. So don't give up. Don't give in. Isolation is very easy to do. I isolated when I was depressed, and that's kind of common. I isolated because people ask you, how are you doing? I didn't want to say, because I'm honest. I don't lie. So I didn't want to say I'm doing great. I couldn't even say it by faith. So I isolated from people. I isolated from people because I didn't want to be told what I was doing wrong. And so don't isolate. Be you. Just be you. And I give you permission. I was so blocked up, I couldn't even cry in public. Well, then a business associate said, Marielle, I give you permission to cry. Oh my goodness, I wish you hadn't done that because I hadn't stopped after that. But no, it actually did set me free, right? Because we always try to be so strong for everybody. You don't have to be strong when you're in the middle of that grief. You don't have to. Just be you. Just lean in to him. And so that's what I want to say.
Thank you so very much, Marielle. I appreciate your clarity. I appreciate your vulnerability. You know, it takes a lot of vulnerability to be courageous. We don't think that those two words go together, because to me, being vulnerable is risky because you never know how someone's going to interpret it or take it. But vulnerability means I'm just like you. And we've all experienced things in different measures because we all have different life events and we were raised and we have different perspectives, but we have one thing in common. We were made by him. We were made for him. We were made in the likeness of him. And he is a place that you can anchor. Now, for those of you who are thinking, that's the last thing I want to do is talk to God right now. I'm like, God love you. I've said that too, because we don't understand a lot of things. And so I would really encourage you to sit and write down a couple of thoughts that came and jump on those, and then sit down and tell God those reasons. Why? Why did you feel that way? What is it you thought was there? What was the truth and what was the confusion? And when you measure it against love, joy, peace, temperance, faithfulness, no judgment, when you measure it against that, if it doesn't have that as a piece of fruit in the messaging, then he didn't do it. His nature and his character can be defined and measured. I was doing SMART goals with my coach the other day. Measurable, they can be measured. They can be calculated out. That's how you know this is the truth of God's heart for you. And so when you do that, I think you're setting yourself up for that vulnerable moment to say, I don't understand you. I don't have language for it, but Deborah or Marielle said this and it resonated with me. And I'm going to say yes to that because I do believe that is your intention for me. So show me what I need to hear. And if you feel so inclined, then just say, God, forgive me if I got it wrong. I'm trying, I'm doing my best, and wake up tomorrow morning. And maybe in the afternoon, you'll be washing dishes and feeling like you want to bake a cake and you want to celebrate because something just got you like a lift in your step. You just get a little jingle there going. So I want to challenge you to do that. And remember, there is no shame. There is no judgment. There is no measurement against anything of who you are and what you are. Any judgment that comes because we've either judged ourselves and we've opened up the door for accusations to come against us, but they're not from the heart of God. And maybe even people that have said things, because sometimes we just don't know what other people are going through. So we do that stupid, I'll give you this platitude, and it helps. They don't understand. That's why we isolate. That's why we pull back, because we don't know how to really grasp it and release. And we're like, nobody gets me. He gets you. He gets you 100%. So in coming to a close, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Marielle, thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for all of this. And the call to action, sit with him and talk. Have the conversation he already knows. That's what this is about. And if you think that this episode was really good, it stirred something inside of you or bits or pieces of it, just take a moment and write it out and maybe even share it with somebody else, because they might need to hear it too. And just be sure, if you would, to subscribe and to share this with other people. And don't miss the next chapter in our podcast, because we're going to expand on emotional signatures. We're going to expand on core beliefs that really guard, and they become gateways into how we choose, and why, like Marielle and I were talking about, you can't just tell your body you're going to feel this way today. And how do you shift that so that your mind, which is your soul, your heart, and your human spirit can come into agreement? And then we're not having all this other tension inside, internal tension, when the external is actually causing the pressure that makes you feel that way. So I hope to see you at the next podcast. Thank you so much for coming. We'll be back, and I hope you have a wonderful, blessed day. Talk to you then. Thanks for tuning in with us. We pray that you're encouraged and find the truth that will set you free on your journey.
To learn more about Redeeming Her ministry or how to partner with us, please check the show notes for links or visit redeemingher.com. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode.